This detail plays a role in the unfolding events. We were leisurely making our way through the forest towards the storm drain, engaging in typical light-hearted antics. The drain's entrance featured two archways side by side, each about 9 feet tall, leading into tunnels with a steep incline and adorned with concrete pillars resembling an ancient temple, a sight we always found intriguing. The tunnels eventually merged into one, but on reaching the top, we found it flooded from recent rainfall, forcing us to retreat. Darkness had begun to envelop the forest, dimming the light at the entrance. N and G had surged ahead, leaving Jay and me trailing. Just as Jay and I neared the drain's entrance, N rushed back, his face tense, whispering about a man outside donning a monkey mask. Initially, the image seemed absurd, yet a wave of unease quickly overtook me. Following N's gesture, I saw a large figure in disheveled attire, a bicycle at his side, his head obscured by a monkey mask. All four of us stood frozen, observing the masked figure in silence. This encounter was entirely unexpected, particularly as it wasn't near Halloween, leaving us bewildered and on edge. We were puzzled by the sight of a man wearing a monkey mask alone in the forest, engaging in odd behavior. Observing from about 15 feet away, we watched as he collected items from the ground, placing them into a small sack, seemingly oblivious to our presence. The unease grew among us, leading J and G to decide it was time to head back to their car, their nerves frayed by the encounter. N and I, driven by a mix of curiosity and thrill, chose to stay behind, watching from a distance as we moved further up the hill to remain concealed. As dusk turned to almost complete darkness, the ambience of the forest shifted from merely odd to outright eerie, yet the unusual nature of the situation held a certain appeal. With J and G now out of sight, N and I lost track of the so-called monkey man. Then, the rustling of leaves drew our attention. He emerged abruptly from the bushes, pausing on the trail in a silent, unsettling standstill. His abrupt movements and peculiar behavior intensified our unease. When he resumed walking, heading in the same direction as J and G, we felt compelled to follow at a distance. The path wound uphill before descending, obscuring our view temporarily. Upon reaching the crest, we spotted him again, stationary and with his back to us, before he suddenly quickened his pace towards our friend's location. Reacting swiftly, we called J and G, urging them to hasten to their car and meet us at the other parking lot across the forest. Ann and I made our way through the now pitch-black woods, our paths illuminated only by the light of our phone flashlights. The silence of the night was shattered by eerie, loud noises mimicking ape calls, surrounding us from all directions. Some felt alarmingly close, yet no source was visible. Driven by fear and adrenaline, we ran towards the parking lot, the bizarre cacophony of screams and yells echoing around us. This intense rush of adrenaline propelled us through the darkness, hastening our escape to the safety of the parking lot. Upon reaching the parking lot, the unsettling yells abruptly ceased. J and G were already there, waiting for us. After climbing into the car, they drove us back to N's vehicle at the first parking area. From there, we all left the forest together, still trying to process the evening's bizarre events. The experience was difficult to comprehend, especially with rumors I'd heard about a secretive Buddhist temple hidden within the forest. Whether the temple or its occupants had any connection to the monkey noises or the masked figure remained speculative. The story, however, didn't end there. Later, one of my brother's friends recounted a night they spent in the same forest, which was interrupted by a police officer. The officer explained that the area was often patrolled due to teenagers using it for parties, but also mentioned that monks from the nearby temple were not fond of people trespassing in the forest, especially after dark. He even shared an encounter where he was sternly asked to leave by one of the monks who had spoken to him from the trees. Although this added a layer of credibility to the temple's existence, it also wrapped our experiences in more mystery. On a separate occasion, we experienced a rock being hurled at us from the shadows of the trees, thankfully missing everyone. This incident further amplified the forest's eerie atmosphere. Years later, curiosity drew Ann and me back to the forest. With the memory of the monkey man and the inexplicable yelling still fresh, we revisited the topic of the temple. Opting for a direct approach, we chose to investigate the temple, which was accessible via street, but far from our location. Our adventurous spirits led us to scale a steep hill for a quicker route. Once at the top, we remained concealed by the tree line, observing the temple grounds, which appeared deserted. With some doors open, we inferred the presence of people inside but kept our distance to avoid trespassing. As we were leaving, we noticed 3 individuals, a man, a woman, and their daughter, around 20 years old, approaching us. The encounter felt like yet another mysterious chapter in the forest's tale, linking back to the temple and the unusual occurrences we'd faced. The presence of the temple, combined with our experiences, painted a complex picture of the forest as a place of both intrigue and unease. The encounter with the family, claiming to be lost and seeking the parking lot, struck us as peculiar. Their emergence from a direction opposite to the parking area, and not along any known trail, added to the mystery. The temple grounds, expansive and open, offered no clue to their origin. Despite our confusion, we directed them towards the main road leading to the temple, which we explained would lead them to the parking area. They expressed their thanks and departed. Anna and I lingered briefly, pondering the oddity of someone getting lost in such a straightforward hiking area, but eventually attributed it to their possible inexperience. Deciding to leave, we headed towards the street that led to the parking lot, half expecting to cross paths with the family again. Yet, upon reaching the bottom, we found our way barred by a large gate, with no sign of the family. Circumventing the obstacle required navigating through the wooded terrain, filled with natural barriers. Surprisingly, upon reaching the parking lot, there was no evidence of the family's presence, not even a vehicle, despite their minimal head start and the physical challenges that should have delayed them, especially given their age. This experience in the forest, from the unsettling figure in the monkey mask to the mysterious family and the eerie noises, remains an enigma. The possible connections between the masked individual, the temple's monks, or even a cult remains speculative. The disappearing family only deepens the forest's mystique. These events are among the strangest I've encountered, leaving a lasting impression and a sense of nostalgia. The forest still calls to me, and I anticipate returning one day, possibly to uncover more layers of its mystery. Story 7. In my early 20s, I had a friend whose father was a problematic alcoholic. Though she had moved away, we occasionally visited him together, staying overnight. One night, following a heated argument fueled by alcohol, he expelled us from his home around midnight. Without a car and situated approximately 4 kilometers from town along a dirt road, we found ourselves walking back to seek help. This was during a time when owning a mobile phone wasn't the norm, so our plan was to use a public telephone to call my parents, who lived an hour and a half away, for assistance. Throughout our walk, my friend, deeply affected by alcohol and emotional turmoil, lamented the strained relationship with her father. By the time we reached the phone booth, her distress hadn't subsided. While she took a moment to sit down, I contacted my parents, who agreed to pick us up. As we waited, a van pulled up close to where we were seated, its occupants a group of young men casting unsettling glances our way. The van's side door slid open, revealing more individuals inside than just the 2 in the front, intensifying our sense of exposure in the deserted surroundings. No houses, people, or any sign of life were in sight, just the empty road stretching into the night. As tension mounted, I stood to better assess the situation, maintaining eye contact with the van's passengers. Their initial quiet murmurs evolved into louder, deliberate conversations, making it clear they wanted us to overhear their disturbing intentions of abducting and harming us. The fear I felt was overwhelming, manifesting as a physical tremor. Despite this terror, I couldn't divert my gaze from them, memorizing one of their faces with such detail it felt as though I could recreate it from memory. He was perched in the doorway of the van, his gaze fixed on me with an unsettling blankness, eyes devoid of emotion, reducing me to an object in his view. Amidst this, my friend continued her drunken sobbing, seemingly oblivious to the imminent threat nearby. Frozen by fear, I found myself unable to warn her or even move. In an extraordinary turn of events, her father, a man notorious for his stubbornness and inability to apologize, arrived seemingly out of nowhere. Despite their rocky relationship and his usual intransigence, he showed up drunk, offering an unlikely yet timely intervention. As they shared an emotional moment, I remained vigilant, watching the van whose occupants had now fallen silent, observing us. Urging action, I prompted us to leave with her father. As we did, the van ignited its engine and began to tail us. Despite my attempts to explain the threat, her father suggested we slow down to let them pass. Instead, they reduced their speed, trailing us closely, shouting threats from their windows. They followed us all the way to her father's home, lingering ominously behind us in the driveway. With no neighbors around to offer assistance, the tension was palpable. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, the van retreated and disappeared down the driveway. My parents, frantic with worry, arrived at the house after failing to find us at the predetermined meeting spot. In the aftermath, her father withdrew, burdened by guilt, while I returned to my family, profoundly affected by the ordeal. I've often been asked if I reported the incident to the police, but my memory of that time is hazy. I don't believe I did. That night altered me fundamentally, ingraining a deep-seated fear and overprotectiveness, especially towards my children. This shift in my demeanor, though born from a harrowing experience, is a choice to err on the side of caution, preferring it vastly over misplaced trust in a world that can harbor such menacing individuals. Story 8. When I was 7, my dad, older brother, and I, along with our cat, stayed at a secluded cabin for a week. My room, the furthest from the others and adjacent to the woods, had a window without curtains next to a tree I'd unsuccessfully tried to climb. One night, feeling homesick and reading comics by flashlight, I heard tapping on my window around 2 a.m. Initially, I dismissed it as wind-driven branches, but whispers soon shattered that notion. Voices coaxing, "Open up, son, it's Daddy. Let me in, Luke, it's cold out here." And chillingly, "Come on, it's Daddy." I just want to cuddle froze me in fear. Terrified, I faced away from the window, my cat hissing and clawing defensively. Clinging to my cat for comfort, I was too scared to shout for my dad. The intruder's maniacal grin, visible as he dragged a pocket knife across the window, finally spurred me to scream. My dad rushed in with his hunting rifle, causing the man to flee, though he escaped with likely minor injuries due to the short fall from the second story. The rest of the night, no one slept. We left the next day after my dad filed a police report, and I provided a description of the intruder. The cat, my protector during that harrowing experience, turns 14 this week, still feisty and a constant comfort. Story 9. At 18 or 19, my friends and I went to Grant County, Washington for the Warped Tour at the Gorge Amphitheater, a venue quite isolated. After a long, enjoyable day, we left around 9 p.m., driving through a highway enveloped by forests, devoid of streetlights. A white car, moving at a high speed, approached us from behind. Our driver shifted lanes to let it pass, which it did, only to reduce its speed to the limit right in front of us. Initially, we didn't think much of it, absorbed in our conversations. However, I soon noticed our speed had dropped below the limit, a puzzling change given the other car's earlier haste. This odd behavior sparked a brief discussion, but didn't hold our attention for long. The situation escalated when the car in front began to decelerate dramatically, eventually halting in the middle of the highway, which alarmed us. While we contemplated their motives, possibly anticipating assistance, their sudden stop seemed strategic, especially when another vehicle started to close in from behind. This prompted the white car to accelerate back to normal speed, leaving us puzzled and concerned about the potential danger we might have narrowly avoided. As the situation unfolded, our fear escalated, recognizing the suspicious behavior of the car that initially sped past us only to slow down and then block our attempts to overtake. Mimicking our speed changes, it became clear they were deliberately preventing us from passing, heightening our anxiety and fear of a potential accident. The tension in our car was palpable, with some of my friends breaking down in tears, uncertain if we were victims of a cruel prank or a more sinister intent. The suggestion to speed past the obstructive vehicle was quickly dismissed, fearing it might provoke a dangerous response. Our isolation, compounded by the lack of cell phone reception, left us feeling vulnerable, as if we were characters in a horror movie scenario. Eventually, we decided to make a U-turn, seizing an opportunity to distance ourselves from the threatening car. We hid in a gravel area used by semi-truck drivers for brakes, waiting anxiously to rejoin the highway behind a passing semi, using it as a barrier between us and any potential threat. After a tense wait, we merged onto the highway behind a semi, ensuring no space for the suspicious car to intervene. As we approached the previous location, the car reappeared, maintaining a low speed until it recognized our convoy with the semi and then accelerated away. The incident left us pondering whether we had narrowly avoided a dire situation or were merely the targets of a deeply unsettling prank. The memory of that night remains vivid, a stark reminder of the vulnerability we felt on that desolate highway. Story 10. As a live-in caretaker, I spent about a year and a half caring for Marie, a 94-year-old woman with Alzheimer's, in her daughter's secluded home deep within the woods of Washington. Marie often mentioned seeing her deceased relatives, such as her sister, mother, and husband, around the house or outside, which, given my years of experience working with dementia patients, didn't particularly unsettle me. However, she had a palpable fear of the surrounding woods, warning me of the dangers lurking and the ease with which one could get lost, urging me always to remain indoors. She expressed concern over her mother and husband navigating those woods, a fear that, while reflective of her condition, highlighted her distress. After about 6 months of my tenure, I began noticing Marie wandering the halls at night, a common occurrence known as sundowning in individuals with Alzheimer's. What was unusual, though, was her frequent visits to a specific window, where she would stand, giggling as if interacting with someone outside. When questioned, she simply responded, "My mother is out there," revealing the complex and altered reality she was experiencing, a poignant reminder of the profound ways dementia can affect one's perception of the world around them. One winter night, the peacefulness was shattered by the house alarm. Marie's daughter and I quickly checked all doors and windows, finding nothing amiss, except for Marie's absence. With no trace of her inside or footprints in the snow outside, panic set in. After an extensive search, I found Marie standing outside her usual window, laughing, without a single footprint around her or signs of cold on her. Her nocturnal visits to the window became more frequent, shifting from joy to aggression, until they ceased altogether. Before her passing, Marie warned me against being taken into the woods, leaving me with a haunting reminder of our eerie experiences together. Fast forward to when I was 16, living in a small town in South Louisiana, I experienced a Halloween night that remained vivid in my memory. Dressed as a zombie prom queen, complete with a formal gown that proved uncomfortably hot and restrictive, I navigated the evening's festivities with my sister and our friend Brooke. As the night drew to a close, and the streets emptied. We aimed to meet my mother by 9 p.m. at the park next to City Hall. With my sister pausing to chat with a friend and time pressing, I pushed ahead, determined not to be late. Wearing the cumbersome dress, I wanted nothing more than to be home. Continuing alone, the emptiness of the streets and the dim yellow lights started unsettling me. A large black truck sped past me and, after taking a turn, passed me again, slowing down ominously on its third approach. The truck's tinted windows and the fleeting glimpse of a face behind them spiked my fear. Hearing it approach a fourth time, I started to run, despite struggling to breathe in my restrictive dress. My panic escalated with each sound of the truck, but I forced myself to keep moving, hoping to reach my mother's pickup point. Then, the truck closed in, and I felt a sharp pain at the back of my head. An arm reached out from the truck, a distinct eagle and sword tattoo visible on the forearm, gripping my hair. In a terrifying moment, he accelerated, dragging me alongside the vehicle as I desperately tried to keep up. Struggling to free myself, I was